Thank you very much. Welcome to today's hearing. My name is Councillor Kelly and I'll be chairing today's meeting. My colleagues, Councillor Deirdre Costigan and Councillor Sumner, we all comprise today's committee. Misha Jalil is clerk to the subcommittee and we'll be minuting the meeting. There may be another Democratic Services officer present. Alison Luff is the legal advisor to the subcommittee and Anjali Garcha is the licensing processing team leader. She will in due course introduce the report. Alison Luff, in accordance with procedure, I will invite the licence officer to introduce the report, provide any clarification on factual issues, invite the applicant to present the application, answer any questions or call upon any witnesses, invite those who have made representations and objections to make representations, answer any questions and call any witnesses. At the conclusion of the subcommittee, accompanied by the legal advisor and the committee Democratic Services officer, we will retire to consider the decision. The decision will be given at the end of today's meeting and will be confirmed in 5 working days. If the panel is unable to reach a decision today, you will be notified in writing within 5 days of the panel's decision. So just before Anjali introduced the report, Ms. Garcha, could we just, obviously I've introduced the council side, could we just, anyone else in the room? Mr. Raja.
Yes, hello. My name is Mr. Raja Hussain. I'm the applicant and I've got Mr. Duncan representing me.
Mr. Craig?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, Chair.
Yeah. And on the line, we also have Sergeant Edwards. Is that correct?
Yes, good morning, Chair. Graham Edwards, Police Sergeant, representing Metropolitan Police Licensing.
Okay, that's everyone. So, Anjali, if you'd like to introduce the report, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Obviously, you may want to please mention the recent
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, so the original application that was received by the licensing processing team was as follows. Rosebery Limited made an application to vary premises license for Chick-fil-A located at 20 South Road, Southall, UB11RT, and the application proposed to extend the current late night refreshment hours so that if granted, the terminal hours would be Monday to Sunday, 2300 to 4 a.m. For that application, we received a representation from PC Vicky Houston, who's a licensing officer of the Metropolitan Police. She submitted a representation against this application on the 4th of February. Those details are in your agenda pack. However, this morning, we received an email informing us that there'd been consultation between the applicant counsel, Mr. Craig, and the Metropolitan Police licensing team, and that the application had been amended to the following, which was late night refreshment 2300 to 2 a.m, opening hours 10 a.m. to 2 a.m, and that the following proposed conditions were added to the operating schedule. 1, customers shall not consume food or drinks on the premises after 1 a.m, and 2, staff shall be trained to recognise indicators of child sex exploitation and be made aware on how to report concerns. Thank you.
Mr. Craig, I believe it's you next, sir.
Grateful. Yes, I'm grateful for the opportunity I've had to speak to the Met this morning. I do confirm that the application is amended as per that email. I think it's right to say, in respect of the conditions, the Met raised a concern about people loiter. The premises itself has 16 restaurant seats, and they raised a concern in relation to people remaining on the premises and nuisance that would cause. And so we had the discussion and we came up with this particular condition, namely that so effectively it's from 1 a.m. onwards, between 1 and 2 a.m. it's off sales or deliveries only. The child sexual exploitation condition is not that there's any issue or concerns around these premises, we wouldn't be having this conversation now if there were, I'm sure. I gave a few talks on the Casey report a few years back when it came out, and read the Casey report as a consequence. And certainly there were concerns around some late night refreshment venues in that report. And so when I deal with late night refreshment venues, I frequently include that condition, because obviously we are there to try and prevent crime and disorder, not just react to it afterwards. So that's the reason that condition is there. There's nothing sinister behind that at all. It's merely there as a matter of prudence, and clearly both those conditions promote the licensing objectives. So that is the application as it now stands. There are no other representations other than the police, but it's right for me to say it's still a matter for you to determine, and your job is to promote the licensing objectives. And I would submit now this application as it stands. I think it's difficult to argue against this. Better promotes the licensing objectives. There are significantly less hours that are being applied for. The new operating schedule is significantly more robust than the one that exists on the current premises license. I would propose one amendment to it, which is simply there's one condition on there that doesn't make any sense, which is condition 3. Given the only authorization on this license is for late night refreshment, it would be a nonsense if there was training in relation to responsible alcohol retailing. So I would just simply invite you to delete the word alcohol from that condition. So there's still got, because look, people selling food in a premises after 11 p.m. There are issues that go hand in hand with that. That is why it is regulated. And the truth is, many people who have been drinking all night go into premises such as these. So it's right that staff are given appropriate training in dealing with that. And so I would submit that those conditions are significantly more robust. I've had the existing license through, and I'm very grateful for the swift response for that request. And I'm sorry I didn't pick up on that sooner. I would say that all the conditions on the existing license duplicate the conditions are duplicated by the new operating schedule, save for condition 1. There's nothing that duplicates that. All the cash registers at the property are to be secured. You may wish to keep that on there. There's no reason why you shouldn't keep it on there. And I would just add, I believe, whilst there is nothing, there's a condition, public safety staff will be trained to be alert to any potential danger to customers and react accordingly. If they're unable to quickly diffuse the situation without risk to customer or staff, then they are instructed to call the police. I mean, it's just not an enforceable condition. That it just doesn't work in any meaningful way. And so I would just submit, even though that isn't duplicated in the proposed operating schedule, I just would submit that doesn't serve any useful purpose at all on the license. So that is the application as it stands. Mr. Raja Hussain has had these premises for 10 years now, so he is very much invested in the local community. You may have a question about deliveries. They don't account for a huge amount of his business, certainly less than a third of his business, which is obviously, given the current situation, is a low percentage, I would submit. He is there every day. No questions around him as an operator, as far as I'm aware. Certainly that's not been raised. The issue is the fact that these premises are in in one of your areas that is subject to certain framework hours. But I would submit now that this is a sensible compromise, that given the more robust conditions on there, given the extra hour, given the further conditions that have been proposed, I would submit in the circumstances, and given the police's position, and they are the main source of advice for you in terms of crime and disorder, then I would submit and commend this application to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Craig. I'm aware that some people are having some IT problems, but obviously it's for them to let me know if they need anything restated. Mr. Craig, before we've got any questions for you, did you want to call upon witness Mr. Raja? I mean, he's obviously there. You can invite him as and when you require, but did you want him to say anything?
He doesn't need to say anything.
Right.
I'm his mouthpiece, but obviously you'll have questions, and if I feel they're best answered by me, I'll answer them. If I feel they're best answered by him, or possibly both of us. So
right, no worries. Okay. Conventionally, I go to the police first for questions to the applicant. Mr. Edwards, Sergeant Edwards.
Thank you, Chair. As we've already discussed, I've been in consultation with the applicant this morning, so I have asked questions. Now, if appropriate, maybe the committee could ask the questions that you feel that concern you, and they will probably in turn be the questions that I would answer, and you will get the answers you want. So maybe could I suggest that? And if there's anything outstanding, you could come back to me. Is that appropriate?
Yeah, that's fine. And obviously, often there isn't sort of the police sort of are here as objectors, and at the moment you're not. So yeah. So if I go to panel of councillors, Councillor Sumner, do you have any questions for Mr. Craig? You're on mute at the moment, but you can check.
We just had to find the right button to press.
Thank you. Yeah.
Craig, thank you. Well, I obviously would be interested. Nice to see you again, Mr. Craig. But I'd be interested in what persuaded the police to go to 2 o'clock from 4 o'clock rather than what was the existing in an SPA. Also, with the opening hours, did you have a discussion about Sundays or not?
No. Individual days weren't mentioned. I rang up Sergeant Edwards. I couldn't speak to him yesterday. He was on he was off yesterday, but he was very good to ring me, contact me very early this morning, and so no. And I guess the rationale behind it, perhaps it might be better if the police answer that themselves rather than myself. I don't want to try and put words in their mouth, but the nature of the conversation was a bit of back and forth. Sergeant Edwards expressed his concerns to me. I discussed the application with him. I acknowledged as it stood, the applicant was facing a challenge at 4 a.m. We discussed around conditions, and then he said one of his concerns was around people hanging around the area, youths hanging around the area after 1 a.m. And so we devised that condition there. And then I suggested the child sexual exploitation based on, it was originally a case I settled in Portsmouth some time ago, and I occasionally throw that in, and he didn't certainly object to that. I don't see how anybody would, frankly. So that was the nature of the discourse. But it maybe you have a question for him that may cast more light as to his thought processes.
It is difficult, Mr. Craig, when he's sort of aimed to me at you, but that's okay. I mean, obviously, I'm trying to get to the bottom of the special policy area, which was stated due to high levels of antisocial behaviour and crime. So perhaps Sergeant Edwards could help us with that. Would that be helpful? Has crime gone?
Yes, go ahead, Sergeant Edwards.
Apologies to cut over. To give you some background then to answer specifically Councillor Sumner. So you're obviously aware that there was a previous application which was refused by the committee. So this now we're in a position where they're asking for the same 0400 7 days a week, which the reason why we're here today. So that was in the police's opinion is excessive, and we refused that. So to talk about the amended hours today of 0200. So we're of the opinion, of course, this is the special area, which you rightly said, and the onus is on the application and the applicant to rebut that presumption they're not going to increase the ASB. So the decision obviously is with the committee. The police are in a position where it's very difficult for us to comment on the crime and disorder, given the times that we're in at the moment, certainly the last 12 months where we have no history of crime and disorder, and we all don't know how things are going to progress going forward. So the police are in a position where we are mindful of the special area, and the policy is there. It's your policy, and if you see and you're not satisfied that the applicant is not rebutting that, then of course it's within your control to refuse the application. We see 0200 as an acceptable compromise to try and assist the applicant. And of course, if we have and we experience problems going forward, we always have the ability to review and to interact with them. So that is why we've come to a decision of a compromise in the middle, and sit here today asking the committee if that satisfies you. Does that help?
Well, yes, thank you, Sergeant Edwards. Of course, leapfrogging is well known on this committee, where one thing is agreed and then suddenly everybody else's applications come in saying unfair. Such and such a place has got different hours to the SPA. So the reason for the question. Thank you.
Chair, sorry, Councillor, if I may summarize, if I just maybe
Go ahead.
Just simply that it's within the 182 guidance and your own statement of licensing policy that every case is treated on its own merits, and so this case would be different from any other. And
thank you, Mr. Craig. Correcting me. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Stanley, you're very welcome to come in again. But
interview.
Yeah, Councillor Costigan. Do you have any questions to Mr. Craig?
Thanks, Chair, and thank you, Mr. Craig and Mr. Raja Hussain for being here today. I just wanted to ask a little bit about the delivery aspect of the business, because I notice, I think one of the concerns at the last licensing committee meeting, and a concern I would have myself, is around deliveries late at night and the noise nuisance that might cause for local residents. And it is a residential area and is, as we said, in an SPA. And I haven't seen anything between the application that went in last year and the application that's come in now that seeks to address those issues that were raised by the committee, and that still would be issues that I would have today. So I'm wondering what the is. When people kind of phone up for a delivery, and you're going to have people collecting deliveries, and we see them now all the time, don't we? Especially in these COVID times, Uber Eats people, Deliveroo, all of that. So that sort of noise of people delivering. How are deliveries going to happen from the business? You said a third of the business is based on delivery. How are they delivered? Is this in cars? Is this in mopeds? How exactly does that work? And have you looked at this as an issue between last application and this application, as that was an issue raised by the committee?
I think Mr. Hussain is better placed to answer that than I.
Great.
Yes, hello. Hello? Okay. Yeah, okay. So what is we use delivery partners, Just Eat, Deliveroo and Uber. So the main ones are Uber, and so the customer places the order through online, and we receive it on a tablet, on a Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber tablet, and then we pay the order. Once the order is ready, we press ready to collect, and then the driver comes and collects the food. So the process is quite, the drivers know, they're trained by like Just Eat, Deliveroo, Uber, how to accept the order. We get trained called how to pass the food over, how to pack the food, and stuff like that. The things are always changing. The rules are changing according to the situation, but we never really had a problem. We pass the food over, they take the food, and they leave the premises quite quickly because they want to do other collections as well. So it's a quick process. They just come, show their code, we pass them the food, and they take the food. There's no really waiting around. It is in and out service, and there's not really been any issues regarding. If you
could just assist Mr. Hussain, where do they collect the food?
From the front of the premises.
Okay, from the front.
Yeah.
And is there parking out there?
Yeah, we're on a main road, so they can park on the main road. Yeah.
And that's a busy road, is it?
It's a busy road, yeah.
Okay. And do you have any, I mean, you say they come in and out quickly. Do you have any systems to ensure that that happens?
Yeah, it's normally when the food is ready, they won't come to the premises until we say ready to collect. So when the food is ready or it's nearly ready, we say ready to collect. They come to the premises, they show their ID, their code for the collection, and then or the name of the customer or the code of the order. We pass the food and they'll be in and out, straight in and out. Not they don't wait around. We don't wait around because we want to get the food out straight away to the customer. Yeah.
And in terms of residential properties, are there any residential properties above?
We've got residential above our premises, yeah.
And what's your relationship with them like?
It's my place upstairs. It's part of my business,
Oh, right.
yeah. So it's my staff who live upstairs, yeah. So,
okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the only other thing I would say, Councillor, I'm sorry, Councillor, all I've got is cost. I don't know what.
Oh, I don't know why that's the case. It's Councillor Costigan.
Costigan.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Costigan. Obviously, there haven't been any representations from any local residents. I know that's not an overwhelming point, but obviously, if they had significant concerns, then they've had the opportunity to exercise that. And
could I just ask what oh, sorry, I thought I was on mute because Councillor Kelly, you're waving, but you were on mute.
Keep going.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask about the transport method that I think you said mainly it's Uber Eats use. What do they actually, the staff from Uber Eats, what do they come in? Do they come in a motorbike, a moped, a car?
Cars.
Bicycle? Cars. They come in cars.
Yeah.
They do come in cars. So that, could potentially be quite noisy at kind of 1:30 in the morning, couldn't it, with cars coming in and out collecting stuff?
I would just make the point, Councillor Costigan, is that it's a busy road, and so there's going to be a lot of background noise in any event. I mean, I know
it won't be that busy at 1:30 in the morning, though, will it?
Busy road. Busy road. I guess my point is it wouldn't have as much impact there as it would potentially in other places. But I mean, clearly you've got the power to impose any conditions that you think are appropriate. I just don't know how any premises. I mean, look, the truth of the matter is the Licensing Act has not kept up with the change in lifestyle, and that goes for alcohol and food deliveries. There's been an explosion in that in recent years, and the Licensing Act hasn't evolved to meet that. And the truth of the matter is, any premises that has capacity for off sales can have deliveries, and there'll be lots of premises out there who've been licensed for 15 years under the 16 years now it is under the Licensing Act, who simply have no controls on them at all. This premises does have significant controls around nuisance. But I'm not entirely sure how a condition that says, well, first of all, I don't think there's any way anyone can condition. It's just not, and of course, conditions have to be achievable and capable of being met. And I'm not saying anyone can condition, first of all, with a provider that they can only use push bikes, for example. I just don't think that would be possible or feasible in the first instance. But secondly, I mean, I guess you could impose a condition requiring the premises to ensure that all deliveries are dealt with as expeditiously as possible. I mean, that's a possibility. I'm thinking off the top of my head, and clearly, I mean, clearly, it's in the premises' interest to get them in and out as quickly as possible. Possibly that they're not allowed. I mean, I don't know whether that would work in any way, whether they're not allowed into the premises until the food is ready. But I don't think that's going to assist in any way, thinking about it. I'm just trying to think of ways off the top of my head that could potentially assist. But this is a wider issue. And I guess that's another reason why a 1 a.m., 2 a.m. is much more appealing than 4 a.m.
Yeah, I mean, I take your point about the wider issue, and certainly, you know, the point about the condition maybe not being helpful if people can't come in until the food is ready, because then you might have them hanging around in front of the premises. You said
Yeah.
the parking is directly in front of the premises, and it is a wider issue. And I suppose to an extent, that's why we've got a special policy area, isn't it? Because it is a wider issue. So,
I mean, you do have the, sorry to cut across you, you do
no,
have
fine.
the power, I guess, I'm not inviting you to do this, but you could impose a condition limiting deliveries to certain times, notwithstanding the fact that there are licensable activities. You have that power. You could, if that was a determinative matter, then you have that power to say no deliveries after 1 a.m. I would question whether that would necessarily be proportionate, but I'm thinking out loud now. I'm thinking on my feet, but certainly you have that power. If you think that if that's a deal breaker, then there we go. I'm sure you'll deal with that proportionately.
Thanks.
Hi, can you hear me, everyone? Yeah, fine. Yeah, sorry to explore this theme a bit more. And like you say, it's you know, the law is not, the License Act isn't as dynamic as the industry, and but we have had this sort of real surge of Uber and Deliveroo, and you know, you drive along any high street now, you'll see dozens and dozens of mopeds hanging around where they think they're going to get their next job.
Yeah,
and you know, you'll become it's this thing about being a victim of your success, where if you start getting a lot of deliveries, you're going to start having a lot of mopeds outside your door because they know that you're busy.
yeah.
So, I want Mr. Raja to sort of explore and tell me how he can mitigate against that. Now, South Road is a busy road, but like Councillor Costigan said, it's not particularly busy even after 8 o'clock. It's not particularly busy along there. I believe is it single yellow line there, Mr. Raja?
Yeah, single yellow line there. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's single yellow line, and you've got round the corner, you've got St. Joseph's Drive, which is exclusively residential. And that's sort of a cul-de-sac, so there's no through traffic going in there. I mean, it's that whole thing about not having, two wheels up on half the footpath so people can't get past, and people slamming doors and having drivers hanging around when waiting for jobs, and coming out, playing on their phones, talking about yesterday's football or cricket. It's about having that measures.
Well, if I could,
I know there's nothing in law and there's nothing in the conditions that can translate that into conditions. But I just want to have some assurances and something from you how you're going to mitigate against all of that, because there's many premises that aren't mitigating against that in and around Greenford at the moment.
Yeah, so basically, when we prepare food, and as soon as we've passed it to the driver, we want them to deliver that food as soon as possible.
No, I get all that. I do, and I understand that. What you don't want drivers hanging around, but what happens when they're outside hanging around? How can you? That's where the antisocial behaviour may form, is because of that the role that they have outside, because they're not direct employees. So do you have the authority to ask them to move on and get back in their cars, etc., etc.? I mean, I was in Edgware a few weeks ago. I nearly got run over by a moped, and I went into the shop and I said, but the guy in the Kentucky Fried Chicken couldn't do anything because, it was a contractor.
Yeah. So we've got a dispersal policy in process at the moment. So we can use that as well, just to say clear the area and stuff. So we've got that in place. And if we have any issues like that, any complaints, we can stop deliveries. That's not a problem at all. We'll make sure, our residents are happy and everyone's happy. We don't want to cause no issues. We've had a license for this long. We haven't had no issues. So we don't want to have no issues. We want people in and out as soon as possible, especially those times. We don't want people hanging around and any issues at all. So we want to serve the next customer, because when people see loads of people outside, they won't come in. They'll drive on to the next shop and stuff like that. So we want to as cleared as possible. Our main thing is we tell our staff, we do like fast food, so maximum customer should wait 3 minutes for the food. So even on a regular day, we just say, look, because the more people standing around, hanging around, when somebody comes past, they think this shop is full, they go to the shop up the road. So we tell them, clear the customer, next customer, in and out, in and out. So our main thing is clear the customer. We don't want people hanging around. We don't want no one standing around at all, because when people see the shop is full, a lot of people,
That's right. I think that's for you. Just one point on that. Now, Mr. Roger, you had taken authority and control of the business, but who's your night manager, your night team? How what measures will you take so that they understand this?
What is normally I'm there in the evening myself. Evening is easier because during the day I'm answering calls. I have to go to the accountants to listen, stuff like that. So in the evening is when I'm normally there myself. But we have a very good manager, good team leaders who know everything very well. And normally the guy who lives upstairs, he's my manager. We keep them upstairs if there's any problem. They come to the premises, but they're trained very well and they know that their main job is to get the sale. And the reason they can get the sale, if there's too many people inside the shop, people don't come in. So we tell them in and out, quick service, serve the next customer and get as much sale as you can. So they're very aware. I've got cameras. I've got like 14 cameras inside my premises. And as soon as it gets, yeah.
That's good. Are you a franchise as such?
We're not a franchise. This is our own. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a brand that you've come up with. It's not a franchise brand. Okay. That's fine. I don't have any questions at the moment. Anybody else before I check my checklist? Mr. Craig, did you want to add anything?
No, I mean, I agree. It's very hard to, the guidance is clear on once people pass beyond the control of the premises, it's not their responsibility. And I would say the pavement is probably a grey area in that. But there is a limit to how much you can, like herding cats, I guess, is the expression to some extent. But certainly, perhaps a condition that the premises will use its best endeavours to ensure that delivery drivers do not loiter around the premises excessively. That's potentially an enforceable condition if you felt that was appropriate.
Yeah, I think that's appropriate, but who would word that? Yourself, Mr. Craig, or?
Yeah.
Fine.
How do you want me to do that? Do you want?
Well, we'll work it out. We'll work it out, but just we'll hold on to that. Yeah. Okay. Anybody else? No. Councillor Costigan, Councillor Sumner. Just anything else? Obviously, we'll get an opportunity to sum up, etc. Sergeant Edwards, did you have anything else for any other questions to Mr. Craig and his client?
No, I don't have any further questions, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Right. Obviously, we don't have any more VRV questions at the moment. So now's the point where actually we sort of confirm any conditions offered or agreed during the discussions. Alison, that last comment about dispersal and delivery drivers, I mean, we might, we might be piloting new policy here.
Good to know.
Huh?
Good to know, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
just trying to unmute myself. Sorry. Yes, it's something that's quite feasible to do. I think we can construct suitable conditions if you're so minded that would put an onus on the people running the premises to take steps to minimise the impact of delivery drivers. So we've had used best endeavours to ensure no loitering. That would there's as Mr. Roger pointed out, there is an existing dispersal policy. I think Mr. Craig suggested all deliveries dealt with expeditiously. Again, it's fairly clear. Enforceability may be questionable, but I think it would be pretty obvious if there is an impact from deliveries that those conditions aren't working, and then you'd be in a sort of review situation. So I think it's feasible.
For what it's worth, Chair, I completely agree with that analysis.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, just to check, there was a mention, I think we're just looking at potential conditions, aren't we? Like, and what might be on the table. There was mention earlier, I think, by Mr. Craig of a potential condition, which could be around not having deliveries after a certain time. I think that's what I've written down.
I wasn't proposing that as a condition. I was just saying that you have that in your power if you deem it to be appropriate. If it's a deal breaker, I suppose
I think that's exactly what you said.
There you go. I started off as a salesman, and I still am today. So there we go. So that's the position. I don't think reading Mr. Hussein's body language, I don't think that would be a deal breaker. But it's whether you think whether you think those mitigation measures that I've suggested are insufficient. I don't get a sense from Mr. Hussein that the deliveries is a huge and overwhelming part of your business. Is that fair comment, Mr. Hussein?
No, it's not. It's not. Yes, it's mainly people finishing work, coming home, just getting some food to go home. That's all it is.
There you are. So it's a matter for you, Councillor.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we've sort of got that condition in the pipeline. Right, really just to invite the applicant to briefly sum up, and that would be it. Thank you.
Not a lot to add other than it's probably hopefully a good example of an applicant and responsible authorities working together and finding, because we've all got to work together. We've all got a huge challenge ahead of us in the months ahead, and I have to convey my gratitude for the helpful way which the Met have dealt with this application. And I would just invite you, first of all, to grant the application as it stands with the conditions around the front of the premises, the conditions that we've added on today, the suggestions I've made around the operating schedule and the existing license, and to grant it as applied for on that basis. And only if you then feel deliveries after 1 o'clock are going to or likely to cause nuisance, given where the premises are located, then that could be a further layer that you could add if you felt that was appropriate. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Anybody else to make a comment before we retire to deliberate?
Sorry, Councillor Kelly.
Yeah.
I'm new to this committee, so I'm really sorry if I'm asking questions at the wrong point. But I just wanted to check if Councillor Sumner raised kind of Sundays earlier, and sort of kind of like different issues, different nights of the week. Is it something that we consider, and would it be something that would be acceptable to look at doing this only, say, for Friday and Saturday nights? Is that something that we're able to consider, and is that something that the business would be happy with?
The business wouldn't be happy with it, but certainly you have that power. You have the power to impose any condition that you think is appropriate, and ours are de facto conditions, because clearly they are a limitation on the business. But certainly no, that I had that conversation with the applicant before, and certainly especially given what you said about people popping on the way home from work, then clearly that would apply from Monday through to Thursday as much as it would Friday and Saturday. So does that answer your question adequately?
Yeah, I think it does. It's something we could consider, but Mr. Hussain wouldn't be entirely happy with it. Which is
No, we wouldn't.
fair enough.
Thank you.
Nigel, did you have anything?
Well,
Councillor Sumner?
I was going to say, I mean, obviously we're only talking about deliveries, but I presume it's collections and deliveries. They have a different meaning, don't they?
So, would you mind repeating the question first? So, Mr. Fletcher could...
A collection is where you're invited to go and collect your own meal. A delivery is where somebody will deliver it to your home. Yes. So one could either be car, bike, whatever. But the incidence is, if we're going to use language, shouldn't we say deliveries and collections?
I think the issue with that, Councillor Sumner, is if somebody's walking down the I suppose a collection would be.
I'm only talking about the traffic. That's where I'm coming from. So you know that. So that's fine.
Okay.
Okay. Time now is 11:13. I anticipate that we would be ready to come back at 11:45. So the procedure now is that our clerk will sort of ask, throw people out the room essentially. The broadcast is no longer live. We deliberate and then we'll come back into the room. So yeah, so I'd anticipate 11:45, but we have the right to take longer should we need.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.